So here's a simple example of how blueprints work with for loops and the like. I'm in this crazy project I've been abusing for years now with my students just to explain things. So I'm just going to use it. I'm going to go make a new blueprint. I'm just going to right click down here. I'm going to say blueprint class, and this is going to be an actor blueprint. There's all kinds of classes that can be made of blueprints. I'm going to say just, I'm going to leave it called new blueprint. Open it up. It's got three parts to it. It's got what we're going to see in the viewport, and I guess Mac's obviously a little different the way it works, but there's the construction script, and this is what is going to happen in real time for the end user setting it up. And there's also an event graph, and this what runs when the game is playing and you're getting real-time feedback. So the construction script is what we're going to be working in here and what we're going to be developing. By default, there's this sort of just scene node. There's this empty scene node. So I guess you could think of this kind of like a mesh MCG plugin where you can, it'll build a mesh for you, sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to build one where the user can choose a mesh and it will instance the mesh around that central position, that central viewport, wherever we place the blueprint. Okay. So really simple to start off with. We got variables we can create down the side here, and we're going to need a variable. So we're going to need a couple of things. One, we're going to need count. So how many items are going to be. Hit enter on that. Comes up red. You can see it's a Boolean. We can change it here, or we can change it up here. We need that to be an integer. We could also tell it to be an array of integers if we wanted, and it would make an array of integers. So we've got that set up. The eyeball here basically means that it is going to be visible to the end user when they're using it. So the person setting this up is going to be able to see this value. So we could also make them hidden as well. So here it is. We can pull these out and we get a get set. And there's a get, so this will get the value. And if we pull it out and say set, there's a set value. So we can set the value and basically make it as a variable that we can set and then use somewhere else again if we want. You can also do that with control drag or alt drag and get those two as well to make it real easy. You can also just drag and drop them right into inputs and it'll automatically do a get. So we're going to need one of these at some point. We're going to need a for loop then to be able to loop through things. So we need a for loop. So the difference being here is everything's going to happen after the for loop, just as you would expect in code. So the construction script, the way it works is essentially everything needs to get fired as functions. So this for loop function needs to get fired, and if something happens after this, it fires it, and so on down the road. How many we're going to loop through? The first index, so you don't have to have some sort of input constant here. You can type it right here, and then of course you can plug in your correct values if you want. So the loop body is going to come out of here. What do we want to do? We want to add a static mesh there. It's called static meshes. So we need a variable so the user can pick their static mesh. I'm just going to call this mesh, for instance. And again, it's going to be visible to the end user. And in this case, we're going to change that to be a static mesh. You're probably ahead of me on that one. So there's the static mesh. So what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to add a static mesh. Add static mesh component. And this will add the static mesh component. Now, this is kind of like adding a null in Max that the mesh is going to get attached to. So this is just going to create this point in space for all intents and purposes. So it's going to loop through this however many times with our count, and it's going to create them. Well, how many by default? Right now, you can see, please compile the blueprint to be able to put defaults in. So I'm going to hit compile, and let's make 5 by default, or you could leave it at 0, whatever, but that's now going to default to 5. We could also add ranges in and whatnot. You can put it into categories so it automatically orders it in a UI. There's all kinds of crazy fun stuff you can do to work with this, that it's just so much easier than what MCG does. From that point, we need to add the static mesh to this. So that is add static mesh. Gotta think about this. Add Oh, sorry, not add, set static mesh. Set static mesh. I don't know why this isn't coming up with it. There it is. Set static mesh. There's a filtering on there you can turn off, context sensitive, because sometimes it will foul the finding of it. So basically where the target is going to be the static mesh component. So what's this being added to that target? And then the new static mesh, and that's going to be this item here. So we're going to do a get and plug that in. And again, the other way we can do it is just drag and drop it, and you'll see that it gives you a check mark saying, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. So there's our static mesh. And then we want to set the location. So we're going to make a sort of random position generator, right? And it's going to, randomly distribute whatever the mesh is, around that central point. And so that is going to be set relative location, and we want to set relative location. And so since this is basically the pivot, we're going to set it on it. Okay, so there's the mesh just attached to it in a sense. There's the location that's going to be created. So we need a new location to be generated here. So we're going to need a couple more variables. We're going to need a min, a max position, and a seed position. So we're going to go min pos, and it's going to be visible, and of course it's going to be set to be a vector value. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that, and this is going to be max pos, and so we've got both of those, so I can drag those out because we're just going to get those. And then we're going to need probably a seed value, and this will be an integer, of course, and we want that available too as well, and we'll plug that in a second. Okay. As we start to need it. So what we need to do now is we need to take these values and we need to create some sort of random XYZ position, in between a range of values, our min and max. So what we want is random uh, float in range from stream. Okay, so random float in range from stream. Now, so you can't do a vector value. We're going to need 3 of these. So if you have something selected, Control W will get 3 of them. It's like copy paste, or you can do a copy paste. And we want to plug these in. So a couple ways to do it. You can break these into their XYZ with a break, or what's really cool is you right click on them and you say split struct pin. So we can actually split the outputs and inputs to be able to generate these. So I'm going to say min max, min max, and min max, sorry, min, there we go, wrong one. And we need the node for make random stream. And the random stream is going to make us a random stream value, and that's going to try and randomize it better. I find I have to do some real funky things to make the random streams. So what's the initial seed going to be as we loop through? This is one of those things that you go, oh my God, in MCG, how do I utilize the index I'm currently at for the input for this in the loop? Well, it's easy. I've got it right there. It just makes sense because I've got the index. I'm looping through a for loop. We're used to typing for I, blah, 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 right? You just plug in I wherever you need I. This makes total sense there. There's I. Now, what we might want to do is have that seed value and add those together. So I'm just going to hit the int plus int, and I'm going to plug that into here. And so we can seed it with a seed value plus the index we're currently working on. So they're nice and different. Now what we can do is we can do a make vector. So make vector. And so we can make the vector and then plug the vector into the position value that the location value as they call it. You see they're color coded so we know what it is. But we don't actually have to use this make vector because we can also split this struct pin and just plug them in directly. It is just so clean to see them like this. Okay. So that should have us working, I think. Let's find out. Compile. No errors. We should be able to drag and drop that on screen. We have our UI here now. Okay, so our user interface. We can go ahead and um, I'm just going to go grab my basic crate. There should be 5 of them here. Let's go and spread those out in X and Y, X, Y, and Z here over a range. And we have our tool that's working, and we can populate more or less of these. So there you go. We can even order this. We don't have to go about all the crazy Mac script trying to figure out how to do any of that. We can actually go around, uh, reordering. Oops, sorry, I had that one on there. So if you just drag and drop these into the order that you want, I think that's the way you do it. There you go, seed. But you can also go in and add categories. So you could say up here, there's category, and we'll just make one parameters, and you can see it comes into parameters. You can either drag this into parameters, or it now shows up in the list, and we'll say parameters and drop it in. And now when we go compile, we've got this, parameters going to be coming up right here. You can see it's ordered. Okay. And then you can even order those, I think. Maybe I'm not sure you can or can't in here. There might be an order way in here. I'm not sure. Parameters, components, not sure. I'd have to play with that. Maybe if put this into a grouping as well, you could push it below. But there you go. It's that simple to be able to put this together. Oh, sorry. One other thing I wanted to point out that's just really great. This index, you might want to use it. Like, here's a instance on spline, flow going on here. So I'm going to need the index all over the place. What a pain that this comes out and you got to drag it all over the screen. So what I can easily do is I can take that, take a variable, and we'll call this just local index. Okay, and that is an integer value, and I'm going to drag it out with an alt for set. It basically becomes a function to fire it. I'm going to go ahead and set that index. And then down here, I can just simply drag out my index now and plug it in, and anywhere else I need it. So I can do a set. So the other one that's cool is you use this method here. Let's see, do I use it in the script? I don't know if I do. I don't think I do. Oh, there it is. Sequence. And the sequence node is great for, so if you go to sequence right there, what you can do with sequence is because these are all tied together and have to flow, so that you don't have to keep connecting them this way. You can flow this out of here now, and start building it down. So at any point in time, you could just sort of, do this, then do this, then do this. And so what we tend to do is in this case, you'll see up top here, I'm making my variables, I'm making my meshes, and I'm setting that mesh right here. So I'm setting that local mesh component into a local variable. And then down here, I'm able to pull that local mesh wherever I need it. And it's all flowing through this sequence node after the for loop, because it just makes sense. Okay, it just makes complete sense. Way easier. There you go. My ranting off.